Hello and very warm welcome to all my listeners, and you are tuned into your favorite podcast channel, Bookish Warm. And in today's podcast, I am going to present a very beautiful, important summary of a bestseller author, Marshall B. Rosenberg. The surprising purpose of the anger. He tells us very efficiently and very cleverly the control methods regarding control and efficient management of your anger, or in other words I'll say it's all about anger management. In the surprising purpose of anger management, the Marshall B. Rosenberg very beautifully describes how we can manage our anger, shares his unique perspective on the role the anger management plays in our lives. So let's begin. I hope you'll enjoy this podcast, and please don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channel, Bookish Form, if you like this book summary. Let's begin. Bestseller author Marshall Rosenberg shares his unique perspective on the role anger can play in our life. He challenges us to shift from idea that anger is something to be suppressed. Instead, anger is a gift, challenging us to connect to the unmet needs that have triggered this reaction. Rosenberg reveals common misconceptions about anger and points out that anger is the product of thinking. A discussion of anger easily supports a better understanding of non-violent communication because it touches on so many key NVC distinctions: living from your hurt, making judgment free observations, getting clear about your feelings and needs, making clear requests, and supporting life enriching connections all relate to how respond to anger. A brief introduction to NVC. NVC evolved out of an intense interest I have in two questions. First, I wanted to better understand what happens to human beings that leads to some of us to behave violently and exploitatively. And secondly, I wanted to better understand what kind of education serves us in the attempt to remain compassionate, which I believe is our nature, even when others are behaving violently or exploitatively. I have found in my exploration into these two questions that three factors are very important in understanding why some of us respond violently and some of us compassionately in similar situations. These three are: first, the language that we have been educated to us. First, the language that have been educated to us. Second, how we have been taught to think and communicate. Third, the specific strategies we learn to influence ourselves and others. And the basic idea is how we have been educated, how we have been nurtured since our childhood depends much on how we manage our anger and our behavior. I have found that these three factors play a large role in determining whether we are to be able to respond to such situations or we succumb to such situations. When we tend to identify anger as a result of something wrong went with us, then our tendency is to want to suppress it and not deal with anger. That use of anger or to repress or deny it often leads us to express it in a ways that can be very dangerous to ourselves and others. Think of how many times you have read in the newspaper about serial killers and how they are described by others who have known them. A rather typical way they are described is, "He was always such a nice person. I never heard him raise his voice. And he never seemed to be angry at anyone. So in NVC, we are interested in using anger in ways that help us to get at needs that are not being fulfilled within ourselves. Beating pillows, etc. simply push the anger closer to the surface and in fact leave the participants more susceptible to express their anger, later in ways that are dangerous to themselves and others. Listeners, you are tuned to your favorite podcast channel, Bookishwarm. And if you like this book summary, please do like, subscribe, share, and don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channel, Bookishwarm. So, continue and keep enjoying this book summary. So, in the NVC, we are interested in using the anger in ways that help us to get at the needs that are not being fulfilled within ourselves, that are at the root of anger. Many of the groups I work with around the world have witnessed the consequences of teaching that anger is something to be repressed. So what we want to do as we use NVC to manage anger is to go more deeply into it. So what is going on within us when we are angry? To be able to get at the need, which is at the root of anger, and then fulfill that needs. For teaching purpose, I sometimes refer to anger as similar to the warning light on dashboard of a car. It's giving you useful information about what engine needs. You won't want to hide or disconnect or ignore it. You had want to slow down the car and figure out what the light's trying to tell us. It works even if only one person applies it. It has been author's experience that if I can keep my attention on anger as a warning, no matter how other person is communicating, we remain connected. In other words, NVC works even if only one person applies to it. It's not too hard then to keep the focus in this direction. It can be scary because it always requires vulnerability on our part just to nakedly say how we are and what we would like to do with it. Are you getting my point, friends? Definitely you are getting my points. And if you like my channel, my YouTube channel Bookishwarm, please do like, subscribe, share to get latest notification of book summaries that are very useful for your lives, that will help you push your limits. So continue listening this your favorite podcast channel, and you are tuned into Bookishwarm, and don't forget to subscribe my YouTube channel. So one thing we certainly stress in our intensive training is how stay with the process regardless of how other people communicate. The NVC approach involves several steps. I'll go over these steps in part. By using the example of a young man in a prison in Sweden, I was working with this man in a prison training session, showing that participants how NVC can be used to manage their anger. Developing a literacy of needs. And there are so many points, so many steps that we need to work upon if you want to get over our anger management. There are few steps. Now we are heading towards the few steps or intensive training through this podcast that will help you in anger management. The first and second steps in anger management. First step is handling our anger using NVC is to be conscious that the stimulus or the trigger of our anger is not something we are supposed to know. The anger is not the cause of our anger. That is to say that it isn't simply what people do that makes us angry. but it's something within us that responds to what they do that's really the cause of anger. Actually, people don't make us angry. It is ourselves. The anger is already within us, within ourselves. Anger is already inside us. That makes us angry when people respond to us, or when people try to have conversation with us. We respond in such a way that is already residing inside us. This requires us to be able to separate the trigger from the cause. In the situation with the prison in the Sweden, in the everyday that we were focusing on anger, it turned out that we had a lot of anger in relationship to the prison authorities. So he was very glad to have us there to help him deal with the anger on that day. I asked him what it was that prison authorities had done that was stimulus of his anger. He answered, I made a request to them 3 weeks ago and they still haven't responded. Well, we had answered the question in a way that I wanted him to do. He had simply told me what they had done. He hadn't mixed in any evaluation, and that is the first step in managing anger in a non-violent way. Simply to be clear what stimulus is, but not to mix that up with judgment or evaluation. This alone is an important accomplishment. Frequently when I ask such a question, I get a response such as, they were inconsiderate, which is moral judgment of what they are. But doesn't say what they actually did. The second step involves our being conscious that stimulus is never the cause of anger. That is, it's simply what people do that makes angry. It's our evaluation of what he has been. That is the cause of anger, and it's particular kind of evaluation. And we see is built on the premise that anger is the result of life alienated ways of evaluating what is happening to us, in the sense that it isn't directly connected to what we need or what people around us need. Instead, it's based on ways of thinking that imply wrongness or the badness on the part of others for what they have done. And friends, you are listening to your favorite podcast channel, Bookish Home, and in this today's episode, I am going through a very beautiful summary written by the bestseller author that I have already told you. And friends, I request you all to please subscribe my channel, Bookish Home, for getting notification of latest book summaries that will help you become a better person. That is my only purpose. So let's subscribe my YouTube channel. That's all in today's episode. I'll be coming up with another beautiful important summary on this book series, that is the anger management. This is first episode. Tomorrow will be coming up next episode on the same series, that is stress management or anger management. Bye bye. Please share me this podcast, comment and like this podcast, and don't forget to follow my YouTube channel, Bookish Worm. Bye bye. Have a nice day.